I'm gonna do a part 3 to my second video because there's a lot more that I want to say, but I have been talking a while, so that's why I have to split the videos basically. But I feel like this makes up for the time that I don't have to film, and it just makes me feel good getting things off my chest. And I feel like in our day-to-day life, we're always thinking about stuff and, just realising things and that kind of thing, or learning something from someone else. Like, I definitely feel that's happened recently, but I feel like I wanted to also add on the basically I don't idolize anyone in the public eye. I feel like when you see rich and famous people, it's very easy to feel like envious and, to wish you had their money. And I feel like for the longest time I felt that way, What really annoys me is, basically, I think it's very tasteless and just, wrong to flaunt your wealth. And I noticed with certain singers in the public eye, they do like to flaunt their wealth. I don't want to mention names, right? Just because I'd rather not. But yeah, one singer in the public eye basically, and obviously this is my opinion, so people can disagree, but we're all gonna think differently basically. But she took a photo of her, in her shoe closet, and I just thought, why would you do that? There's a difference between working really hard for your money and buying a nice car, but there's a difference between, working really hard for your money and flaunting it, do you know what I mean? Of course, if you're a millionaire, you're gonna buy a nice car, right? And you're gonna buy nice things for yourself, right? So yeah, we're gonna treat ourselves. But when you're flaunting your wealth, that's a problem. And I feel like it's just disgraceful, That's it, It's when everyone knows you're a millionaire, why do you need to brag about it? And it's it doesn't make a difference even if you grew up poor and you're now a millionaire and, you've worked for your money. It doesn't mean that you should, flaunt your wealth. And taking a photo in your shoe closet, that's just showing off, So I feel like, as much as I do love, singers and, we all love music, I've started to feel like, I don't really, I've just realised that, they're not really they're not down to earth, they're not relatable, despite growing up poor and now becoming a millionaire, like, obviously you're not going to be able to relate to a millionaire, even if they, grew up poor, right? Do you know what I mean? Because it makes you more humble when you grow up with nothing and you're now, a star, right? But I'm just saying that I think a lot of celebrities, I say a lot, some of them, basically, definitely like to show off when it comes to their wealth. And like I said, if you're a millionaire, of course you're going to have expensive cars, of course you're going to live in a mansion, like, you expect that. Of course you're going to have a designer handbag, but, like, you don't need to, like, show off, You don't need to, like, take photos and put it on social media, right? So that's just, like, my viewpoint, and I feel like this has been on my mind, like, recently. I've definitely been thinking that, that, and it's also the whole, putting your, posting, multiple, like, numerous photos of you and your partner, or just your partner, and, some people are private and, don't want to do that, but I think it's just, I just think it's unnecessary, basically, to, like, post photos of you and your partner all the time, like, or just photos of your partner, really, because, again, it's like you showing off, like, especially when you're a millionaire. I'm not talking about being a non-famous, ordinary person. So I feel like over the years I've started to unfollow certain celebrities, purely because, I just feel like they're doing things that I just feel like is not, it's just not cool, and obviously, people are going to do what they want, guys, like, obviously, but I just think sometimes, you don't, you decide to unfollow a certain person in the public eye because they're just not your cup of tea, like, and, there are some singers that I still love, and, like Billie Eilish, Rihanna, I don't know who else, like Coco Jones, she's really good, but yeah, the ones I'm not mentioning, I don't really like anymore, basically, including certain rappers as well, and I do really like Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, but obviously that's his name now. Love him. His music's, like, insane, honestly. Like, he's one of the classics that I, like, still love, would love to go to his concert, really enjoy his music. And I think, the singers that I still like, or rappers, they don't, they don't, like, show off, or, they're very down to earth, basically, so I just don't like people that, are very rich and want to show off. That's it, guys, like, I think if you're a millionaire, it's like, you don't need to post photos on social media, of you in your shoe closet, or you, or, you know, or, you know, a picture of your car, you know, because that's just, obviously, you know, you're just bragging, you know. So, as always, people are going to have different opinions, you know, and that's fine. Like, if you don't agree with what I said, then that's okay. But this is just, you know, this is how I feel, you know, and, you know, my feelings never change on anything, you know. Like, once I feel a certain way, that's it, you know. And I feel like another thing I want to say in addition to that is I don't feel like a self-made millionaire. If you're a self-made millionaire and you grew up, you know, poor, and you're now a millionaire, that's incredible, you know. That's incredible. But, you know, I personally feel you're not a self-made millionaire if you didn't grow up poor and you're now a millionaire. That's not self-made, you know. So that's another thing I want to say, is self-made is when you earn every penny yourself, not, you know, growing up in a wealthy family and then, you know, starting your own business and now you're a millionaire. So, you know, obviously I don't want to mention names, but, you know, even though it's like, it's my opinion, but, you know, I just would rather not, because I'm on YouTube, but I'm saying that it's like, yeah, it's just kind of like, there's just certain people, like I said, in the public eye that are also not singers, and, you know, they just show off all the time, you know. Another thing, like, I think is really tacky is if you're a woman and you're, you know, wearing very revealing clothing, or you have your body out all the time. I don't agree with that. I think it's weird. And, you know, I think it's wrong, you know. I'm all for women empowerment, but it's like, we need to realise where we're going wrong, you know. And as women, we need to realise when we're taking it too far. And, you know, putting your body on Instagram when you're a mum is just wrong, you know. That's another thing I want to say. Like, when you have kids, I'm not saying that, you know, you shouldn't wear a dress. Of course not. Or you shouldn't wear a skirt, or you shouldn't wear shorts, you know. I'm not saying that, right? Like, just because you're a mum, it doesn't mean you should just wear jeans and a blazer, or wear jeans and a top and a jacket for the rest of your life. Like, I don't think that at all, right? Like, you know, you're still your own person, even when you're a mother. But I just don't like women that, you know, put their body on Instagram, you know, whether you're famous or not. And I feel that, you know, it just doesn't make you genuine. That's it. Obviously, we're all different, and I don't like doing that, but, you know, obviously, even in my videos, you know, I'm very covered and I like to dress smart, but, you know, and let me say this, right, when it comes to YouTube, you know, some women that are YouTubers, you know, like, I've watched people and, you know, they're not, like, they don't dress smart, they're just wearing, you know, like, so, like, I don't know how to explain it. If you get what I'm saying, you get what I'm saying. Like, everyone's entitled to wear what they want, right? Like, absolutely, you know. Everyone should be able to wear what they want and, like, express themselves how they want. but I just personally don't feel, you know, that it's just not for me, basically, to, you know, wear revealing clothing. I've never been that way, especially with YouTube. Like, I just couldn't do it. Like, it's just, you know, I just couldn't wear a revealing top on YouTube. That's just not me. And that's okay, right? And I don't want to come across like I'm shaming people, right? Which probably has come across that way, but I'm just saying, like, if you're a woman and you're constantly putting, you know, videos and photos on Instagram of you and your body, you know, and you're wearing like a very short dress or you're posting bikini pics, I just think it's just, you know, it's just weird, you know? That's it. Like, it's just tacky, you know, because I feel like, you know, you shouldn't put everything out there, is what I'm saying, basically, even though people can do what they like, but I'm just saying, you know, and, yeah, I'm just trying to think what else I want to say, really. I do want to say that, you know, basically, I feel like I'm becoming more comfortable in front of the camera, because I still get nervous, but I feel like the more I film, the more comfortable I am, you know, and the more I film, this, you know, the more I want to say. So I feel like that's definitely my goal, even though it is really hard to, you know, film more and just basically, you know, update you guys on how I'm feeling and what's going on, you know. Whether anyone's interested or not, I don't know. Like, you know, sometimes I think, is anyone actually interested in my videos? But I feel like because I just say it how it is and, you know, I'm very open and honest, I think that people, you know, some people do gravitate towards that and resonate with that. And yeah, I just think it's really important to always keep it real, you know, and that's the point of life, really, is to just keep it real. And everyone's got their own truth, everyone's on their own journey, and I feel like